Hey y'all, wanted to give you guys a little life update and let you guys know why I haven't been posting on here for the past 2 weeks. Life has definitely been lifing. This is going to be a story time in regards to my childhood trauma. So trigger warning, and especially for those who have experienced any type of SA as a child. Bear with me while I try to articulate myself the best way that I can. I'm not Risa Tisa. This is not going to be a super organized story time. I'll probably be all over the place. So here we go. About 2 weeks ago, I decided to initiate a no contact with my parents and some family members. And now I'm going to give you the whole backstory as to how I got here. So as a child, I was SA'd by my biological father. Before I get into the whole timeline, I wanted to give a little backstory on them. My dad, he had a rough childhood and upbringing. He had a alcoholic, very abusive mother, and he kind of was forced to leave his house at a young age, and he pretty much raised himself. He has never really unpacked his trauma or realized that he deals with trauma. So obviously, you know how that goes with generational trauma. If you don't put an end to it, then you're gonna pass it down to your children. So that is pretty much what happened. My dad has a history of abusing alcohol. He has a very strong temper. He's never been diagnosed with being bipolar or anything. Now my mom, I don't know, I feel like she's stuck in this very childlike mentality. I feel like her brain never really developed. So if you know my mom, you know she's like a kid, and she's pretty much been taken care of her entire life. My dad obviously had to marry her before she was able to leave her parents' house. My dad, he pretty much taught himself to be very independent because of his childhood trauma, and he was always really good with his finances. He makes good money, and yeah, so even from the moment my mom left her parents' house, she was pretty much taken care of by my dad. He covered all of the expenses. She doesn't know what it's like paying a bill. She's worked during her life, but not because she had to. That's a little bit of a background. If I miss anything, I'll probably add some later. So let's move forward to when I finally confessed to my mom what happened to me as a child. So it is the year 2007 or 2008. I was in my freshman year of high school, about 15 years old. As we all know, during our teenage years, for the most part, a lot of us are exploring our sexuality. Some of us lose our virginities. And yeah, so me and my best friend, we had this little notebook. Forgot what we called it back then. It was like a smash book. I don't know, but it was like a little notebook. We used to just write back and forth to each other, and we wrote a lot of personal things on there. Our little encounters with boys, things like that. So because of, I don't know if this has to do with what I experienced as a child, but I did start exploring sexuality at a young age. And I went through my stages where I was like boy crazy, and I just wanted I wanted attention from boys. So yeah, so there was one day where my homeroom teacher confiscated my notebook because I was writing in it during homeroom, and her nosy behind went and read some pages and decided that this notebook needed to be turned in to my parents. So my parents got a hold of this notebook, and my mom, I don't remember her having much of a reaction, but my dad, he was enraged. He called me a WHORE. I don't want to say the word, but yeah, he called me that. he was just like super enraged. He was making my mom like choose between me or him. Like he just had to leave. Like he couldn't be in the same house as me. Later cut off so that he couldn't be in the same house as me. And he was threatening to send me off to DR to live with my grandmother. What I remember from that whole encounter was I was crying, and I remember like falling to the floor and I was crying, and my dad went and he like tried to pick me up from my neck. And yeah, so with that situation, I decided that I think it was time for me to finally tell my mom what happened to me as a kid, because I wasn't understanding why he was reacting this way when he's the one that took my innocence a long time ago. So when I told my mom, she kind of was in shock. She was asking me like, are you sure you're telling the truth? And I was like, I'm telling the truth, I promise. And then she was acting like she was gonna confront the situation. And, you know, I wanted the support from my mom. At the time, I don't know what happened. All I know is that it pretty much got swept under the rug, and there was nothing that was done. There was no cops that were called. There was no investigation, nothing. Life moved on. I later found out why my mom decided to not pursue it. So yeah, so besides the whole essay thing that happened to me as a child, my teenage years were rough, dealing with my dad's anger. His anger was bad. He never beat us bad, pretty much like normal weapons like any kid, but sometimes he would let out his anger by punching walls, breaking things around the house, things like that. And yeah, it was just, that alone was very traumatic, and they literally made it difficult for me up until the day that I was kicked out of my house. So that's part one. So let's go into part two. So this is part two. So I already mentioned the moment that I decided to confess to my mom what happened to me as a child, and that I was essayed by my biological father, and that everything was kind of swept under the rug. Okay, so moving on, this is fast forward into 2020, I want to say 2021. I think it has been 3 years now since this incident. There was an incident where another child in my family was essayed by another grown adult, and this adult was this child's grandfather figure. I'm not going to get into that. That is not my story to tell. But basically, that whole situation brought out my trauma again, because as a child, this man that essayed this little girl, he also me as a child. He didn't me in any way, shape, or form the way my own father did. But the reason I bring that up is because once my mom found out that I also was essayed by him, she was crying. Like it looked like she was auditioning for a movie or something, for a role. And she was like, oh my God, like, how come you didn't tell me? How come you never told me? And I feel like she was reacting like that because the way that everyone was reacting towards the news that the other little girl was essayed. So everybody was full of emotions because of that. And then I feel like my mom, I don't know. I can't tell you that her emotions were fake or if they were real. To me, they felt very fake. So I was like, why would I tell you that if you didn't even react to when I told you what my own dad did to me? That makes no sense. So with that happening, it really brought my trauma to the surface, and I was struggling with the fact that just my issue was swept under the rug, and it was eating at me. It was eating at me until I decided that I was going to speak up again as a grown adult this time. So this was now end of 2022. It was almost New Year's. We were almost going into 2023. I decided that I was going to confront my parents. I had wrote a post on Facebook, very vague, and I feel like Parents read the message and I feel like they knew that it was about them. So automatically they hit me up and they were like, oh, like, you know, what's up with that post? And I was like, I think you guys know what it's about. And they were like, I have an idea. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, and I will address it to you when I'm ready. And they were like, okay. So one day I decided to talk to my mom first. I FaceTimed her and I just told her that I was going to do no contact, that I wanted to just step away for a bit. I told her how disappointed I was in her as a mother for not being there for me when I really needed her and her choosing to not believe me. That is when she confessed that the reason she didn't proceed with anything is because she had went to church and the pastor told her or convinced her that I was lying, and she went with that story. So yeah, she still wasn't apologizing or showing any sympathy towards the situation. My mom, like I said, she's always like in this really childlike mentality, and she lives in her own little perfect world, and all she cares about is her world and her world staying perfect. So I feel like she was more concerned of the fact that her world seemed like it was like crumbling. She was kind of like, how can you do this to me? So she agreed. She's like, okay. She's like, well, I'm gonna miss you. And that was that. At that point, I wasn't really planning on addressing the situation with my dad. I kind of just didn't even want to talk to him. So this now was probably not even a week later. This was during the week. And my hubby, he's a truck driver. It was one late evening during the week, and I hear a knock on the door. I'm here thinking that it's hubby. He's home. He couldn't open the door himself because he was probably carrying something in his hands, and his hands were full. Sometimes he comes home with food. I just thought he was carrying something. I didn't think to check the Ring camera just to make sure. I just automatically thought it was hubby. I opened the door, and there stands my mom and my father uninvited. So let me go into part 3 now. All right, so this is part 3 in regards to my childhood SA story. So yeah, so they are standing at my front door uninvited. Ironically enough, my hubby did come home from work and he was actually in his car in the driveway. So I was like, you couldn't have warned me that they were there. And I forgot what excuse he gave me that he couldn't warn me in time, but a bunch of feelings were coming up. I was feeling anxiety. So my dad stands there and he's like, we need to talk. At that point, I kind of felt like I had no choice but to let them inside my home. So I let them in. We go to my dining room table. We sit down. I have no words. I am shaking. My hubby comes inside, obviously, to sit there and support. He obviously knows of the story. So I don't know how the conversation started, but I basically decided I wanted some answers. So I asked my dad, why did he do these things to me? He couldn't give me a straight answer. And I was obviously showing a lot of emotions, as I should. I have been suppressing all of these emotions for so long. I have been forced to keep quiet for so long. And so I was very, very emotional. And my dad, he was like, oh, you see, like this is, you see that it's your attitude. It's your attitude. And I was like, I have a right to feel this way. And then out of nowhere, I feel like that child in me, she came out. I was crying like a little girl. I was sobbing. Like I've never sobbed like that as an adult, never. And I looked at my mom and I was just like, how can you just sit there and support a pedo? How can you support that? Because that is what your husband is. And my mom's reaction was very weird. Again, it's like she's listening to me, but it's like it's not registering. And I feel like she's just saying the things that she felt was right. Like, we all just need to go to therapy. As I'm crying, my dad, he steps out of the house for a second, and I'm just crying. My hubby obviously is there comforting me, and my dad comes in, he's sobbing, and he was just like, I'm sorry. All I ever wanted was for you to be proud of me. And sometimes I feel like my parents are such good manipulators that until like later on I realized like, damn, like y'all got me again. So when that moment was supposed to be about me, I ended up trying to console my dad and letting him know that everything's going to be okay. And then my mom's just like, yeah, we're all going to get therapy and we're all going to be okay. So basically that's what we tried to do. We all tried to get our own separate therapy. I know they say that you're not going to find the perfect therapist at first, that you kind of have to hop around to different therapists till you find the right one, that's the one that's right for you. But after the first therapist that I had, I was just like, you know what, I don't think therapy's for me. I did some sessions, I did some like hypnotherapy, all of that, because I was diagnosed with PTSD because of what I went through, because I have flashbacks often, especially when I am trying to be intimate with my own partner. I get really bad flashbacks. I have to kind of like snap out of it and tell myself that I am with my man and not with my father. That's how bad it gets. So my dad goes to his own therapy. My mom goes to her own therapy. That didn't last long. And then before you know it, situation gets swept under the rug again. So my mom goes back to her perfect world because I'm no longer threatening to leave. I'm just kind of back to my usual routine. I am the type where I call my mom every day, every single day. When I get off of work, I call her. Like sometimes I call her 2-3 times a day. And yeah, so my mom's world is perfect. And then it wasn't until recently where I started to feel very triggered again, just from the sound of my mom's voice. Every time we talk, I was just kind of getting tired of her getting on the phone to like just hear herself talk. When I call her, she will be the one talking from the moment she says hello to the moment she says, okay, well, I'll talk to you later, goodbye. And it's just her telling you about her day, what's going on in her life. She's planning on going on vacation, but not once does she say, how have you been? How have you been feeling? And I was kind of getting tired of that. So I decided that this time I was really going to try to do the no contact. So this is obviously now fast forward to the 2 weeks ago. So let me get into how that all came about. So this is I think part 4 in regards to my childhood essay story when I was essayed by my biological father. So like I said, now this is fast forward to just 2 weeks ago. Actually, pause. Before I get into that, I did want to mention one other important part in the first time that I confronted my parents. So my mom, she went through before they ended up showing up at my front door, for those few days that I wasn't talking to her, I guess she had a little meltdown herself, and she had called her sister. She called her mom, my grandmother, to let them know about what happened. My aunt called me trying to convince me that my mom is like a child and just to like pity her, just to let your mom, she has such a big heart, she has no hate in her heart, trying to convince me that my mom's such a good person, which my mom is a really good person. But what I'm not gonna accept is that she chooses to be so naive. And yeah, I'm just not gonna accept the fact that, I don't know, as a mother, like how can you not be there for your child? I will always choose my child before any man. I'm always going to believe my child. So then my grandmother calls me, and she also has no sympathy in regards to how I was feeling and what I went through. Her main concern and her reason for calling me was to tell me that I better not dare think that my mom is going to leave her husband, because that is just the Dominican culture. I don't know if this is a Caribbean thing in general, but she called me just to let me know that I better not think that my mom is going to leave her husband. So that's when I kind of lost respect for my grandmother as well. So yeah, so I'm no longer talking to them either. And just the fact that they also caused me a lot of trauma for other stuff too. So, okay, now back to 2 weeks ago. I was feeling very uneasy. This was like on a Saturday. Me, hubby, and my son, we went to go watch a movie at the movie theaters, and I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I think I'm gonna tell my parents again that I really do want my space so I can heal. So that next Sunday, I woke up and I sent them, both my mom and my dad, a message on WhatsApp as a group text, and I didn't tell them that it had to do with what happened the first time, my reasonings for wanting to do the no contact the first time. I just told them like, hey, I'm dealing with a lot of mental health stuff right now. It was advised by my therapist to take some time of isolation, and I want to take his advice. So I would like for you guys to respect my wishes and of course my boundaries. Just respect my decision at this time. I will let you know when this period of isolation is over. Their response, I mean, I don't know why I was shocked, to be honest. My mom again made it all about herself. She wasn't concerned about my mental health, what I was feeling. All she cared about was, you can't do this to me. I'm gonna go crazy. You can't do this to me. And I was like, what do you mean I can't do this to you? I was like, listen, you're gonna have to learn the hard way that life doesn't revolve around you. And you are going to learn to have sympathy for other people. And then my dad's reaction. Okay, so this is something that I did leave off, detail about my dad. My dad goes through these episodes. Sometimes it happens like once a year where he will gradually start drinking. He'll start off with a beer, a pack of beer, and he goes into the hard liquors. He'll come home and he'll take a shot, and goes to the point where he comes home and he can almost drink an entire bottle. When my dad gets drunk, you're gonna get two sides of him. You're gonna either get a very lovey-dovey side where he's pretty much saying the things that he doesn't say when he's sober. Oh my God, like, you know, I love you. And then the other side is the ugly side where he very sensitive. He starts, how do I say, like diarrhea of the mouth. And he has effed up so many relationships and friendships because of that mouth. And yeah, and then he gets to the point, like he also brings it up at least once a year where I'm gonna divorce your mom, I'm gonna divorce your mom, that's it. And that gets old. And then he gets to a point where he realizes that he effed up. He starts asking everybody for forgiveness, and that he's gonna stop drinking, and that he's gonna go to therapy. And then the cycle starts over again. And he goes back, he'll stop drinking for a little bit. Then one day you'll see him and he's having a beer. Then he's having the pack of beer. Then he's having a shot. Then he's having the whole bottle. And another explosive episode. So with the message that I sent them on Sunday, his response was like, oh, I understand. I'm also going through some mental health issues. And I'm going to divorce your mom. And I'm going to just go away. And I was like, you cannot keep using this as a tactic. Like, it's not going to work anymore. You're not going to put this on me. I was like, your marriage has nothing to do with me. If you guys get a divorce, that's on y'all. Good luck. But I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to heal from this because I need to be a better mother to my child. And I refuse to pass down trauma to my son. So at that point, I blocked them both from everything. And I haven't talked to them since. And this time I guess they are finally respecting my wishes. They haven't shown up again to my front door. They haven't tried to find any way to contact me. The first week was very hard. It kind of felt like I was grieving. A lot of panic attacks. I was having like chest pains. I couldn't sleep. It was like insomnia every night. And then right after that, I feel like God was sending me a bunch of tests. I don't know if this is to see how strong my faith is in him. I don't know, but I feel like he's putting me through these trials and tribulations right now, and it's been very overwhelming, and I've been just trying to take it in, process it. And I guess this is the part where they say where your healing journey, your spiritual journey, it's not all flowers and sunshine. Like, it gets really ugly. So that's pretty much what I'm going through right now. So yeah, so just asking for you guys to have patience with me. I will pop in here whenever I can, whenever I'm in the mood, but it's just been very difficult to pull out this camera and record. So this is the reason for my little hiatus. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. Maybe I will give you guys some more details. And yeah.